Yeah, crazy. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. Like I said, I mean, compared to bigger cities, it's pretty small, but it's like the third largest city in Louisiana. When I was going through college, I remember at times I was like, I just want to get out and make 60, 70, $80,000. Because I come from that thinking like, that's a lot of money. Then now when you start getting into tech, and what helped me realize what a lot of money was when I was doing help desk, everybody had the different contractors. So a lot of us were Apex, and then some people had their own contractor. One guy was doing help desk with us. He was getting like 40 an hour to do help desk. And then that's when I started realizing, like, hold on. Wait a minute, he getting 80 like cadence to do this, and we doing all this work, and I'm only getting 35? So I started expanding my mind, and I think honestly, when I moved out here in 2016, that's kind of when the light switch kind of flipped on.
Welcome back to another episode of Day in My Tech Life. My name is Simone B, also known as Bees. Today we have a very special guest. We have Henri Davis. He is a senior incident response analyst, and you might have also seen him on YouTube, on Textual Talk, or on his podcast series that he has. So welcome on to the channel.
Appreciate you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So I reached out to you. I was like, yeah, I'm coming to Dallas, and you just kept hitting me up like, hey, when you coming? I was like, oh yeah, let me send you that link.
yeah, because I was like, I didn't know what you're gonna be out here for, but I was like, shoot, if she ain't super busy, we can swap for swap. But then I seen you had a time slot, so I was like, I'll catch her again because she's probably trying to record like all at once.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I think people might know about you, but I definitely want to give them like a background, like, where are you from? What made you want to get into tech in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm Henri Davis, the Textual Talk podcast, textual chatter on everything, and also textual consulting career coach. But I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, 318, the real ratchet city. And why did I get into tech quick story was when I went to college, I majored in architecture at first because I like designs and all that kind of stuff looks. But I realized I'm not as skilled as some other people when it came to drawing and drafting. So I was like, what's going to be in demand? What's going to make money? I had always been good with computers. I like video games. Went to the College of Business. I saw there what type of salaries people get. And I was like, okay, I'm majoring in that because I want to work from home too. And that's kind of when it started. That was 2010. Yeah, that was 2010. So I was working as the IT assistant through college for the College of Business since like 2012. And then I got my first gig in 2014. Like pretty much, I didn't know it was GovTech at the time, but I was doing GovTech for Apex and CSE, which is GDIT now.
Dope. So you started out kind of like how we all start out, right? Like starting out with help desks and things like that. And I feel like we can get back into that like later into the talk, but I just feel like, everybody want to get into tech, but nobody wants to start like at the bottom,
Right.
even if it's temporarily. But yeah, I didn't know you were from Louisiana, so that's really dope. So you ended up leaving Louisiana and coming to Dallas. My dad's family's from Louisiana too, and some of them came over to Dallas as well.
Yeah, there's no opportunities there. Like outside that job I had in Bossier City, which is, Barksdale Air Force Base, there was nothing else I could do. All the jobs were not really paying what I like. At the time, I was getting like making 40K.
Okay.
And so even trying to get more than 45K or something like that in Bossier, unless I was going to work at at the time, LSU Health Sciences Center, they had part of like the LSU hospital. So you could probably work there and get a little bit more, since technically that would have been like a state job since it was a part of the college. But one opportunities there. So like most people, we come out to Dallas.
Yeah.
Even though we probably don't stay in Dallas, we come out to Dallas and we try to find a job.
Yeah. That's exactly what my aunt did. She moved to Dallas like maybe 30 years ago from Louisiana. So yeah, there's not much opportunity out there. But I like that, one, you got into tech and then you immediately saw like, hey, there's no opportunity here, and you just moved out of your state. Like, do you recommend other people who want to get into tech, should they be flexible with like their first tech job or their second tech job? Because I see that a lot nowadays, that people, they really don't want to be flexible. And I think that's what allows you to actually get into this industry way faster, is the more flexible that you are.
I totally agree. So even through consults with different people I'm seeing where they at, I'm like, are you tied down to this spot? Because you and I know we've been in this game for a while. Most of those opportunities come down to location.
Yep.
Now it was a brief period of time, 2020 through probably like 2022, where everyone could be remote. A lot of those things are changing now. So in that case, if you don't have a family and you can up and move, go. Even if you're not finna get like the highest salary, just go put yourself in position. When I moved here from Shreveport to Dallas, I think I was only making like $8,000 more a year. But I said, okay, if I get in position, I'm going to land a security job. And in like 6 to 7 months, I ended up getting my first cybersecurity role at Intel, which later changed into McAfee at the time. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't go ahead and take that first step and move out here. I'd still be at the help desk complaining about how I'm not getting paid enough and how ain't nobody hiring. That would have been me had I not just went ahead and went with my gut feeling.
Yeah, and I see that happen all the time. Unfortunately, a lot of people do get stuck in help desk, and I do think a lot of it does come down to location. So even if it is like temporarily you have to move somewhere else, sometimes you have to do it. But at the end of the day, if there's no opportunities where you live at and you can't get a remote job, I just think that people just gotta, just really just up and leave. It's for me, it's something that I'm used to. Like if a job called me and they're like, hey, you need to go here tomorrow, I'm gone, right? Like I pretty much, I'm not tied down to any location. So, but yeah, so you got your first job and then you end up getting your first security job. So what were you making when you got that first security job, and what type of like work were you doing, and what type of skills did you gain from your first role that you carried over to the second?
Sure thing. So that first security role was a SOC analyst, and I think my base was like 68,000, but total comp was around like 75,000. And the skills I took from me, because before I landed that job, I had worked in the NOC for like 6-7 months. So I learned about incident management. I learned how to write up reports outside of things I had already did in help desk that I merged the two that I took with me of being a SOC analyst. And for those who don't really understand what a SOC is typically like the first line of defense for many companies when it comes to security threats. They're most of the time sounding an alarm on if something's going to be an incident or not. And we know most companies who don't have a good SOC team or don't have one at all, they typically end up in the news with the different breaches. So that's our job. I know a lot of people try to think that working in the SOC is like doing like a pretty much security help desk, but it's really not. It requires you to know about many different domains and have pretty much a skill set to be able to do a lot of things instead of just one thing.
So can you explain to us what a NOC is for people who don't know as well?
Yeah, so NOC stands for Network Operations Center. Typically, they don't do a lot of work. They're like more responding to network outages or routing different things, like in my instance. And this is a thing I didn't even know I was doing, but I was working in the payment card industry at the time. I was working for a company named Income. They're based out of, I want to say Atlanta. And they had, the company I work for specifically, Income acquired, they had the certain software. And Income works with payment card things, not payment card, but like gift cards and those things of that nature. So they had all these different clients, and we had to monitor Splunk at the time. And if a connection or something went down, that's when we get on Slack, and then it's an incident and all this other stuff. And so we're just doing kind of like incident commander work and doing that. Like I think we used to create users for, I can't remember, it's been ages ago.
Yeah.
But most people in the NOC will tell you like they don't do that much work. Like when I was working at the NOC, I used to have to work 7 to 7 on the weekends. So I was in there watching Netflix, doing push-ups. I started going back to school just because I was working at the NOC because I didn't have nothing to do. That's how I ended up getting my master's.
Yeah. So why is like the NOC, there's not as much to do versus the SOC?
I think how it starts off just because of what they limit the NOC to do. Like most NOCs don't do a lot of work, but there are the NOCs that actually, they do a lot of things where they setting things up, where they're probably doing stuff in the firewall, where they're learning to actually be probably a network admin. Because you'll hear people just say like, at least just get NOC or something on the resume. They may ask you some stuff. But for the most part, I don't know. I think that would be a good answer for like a networking person, why they don't really trust the NOC. And I think, and then so we can also get into this too when it comes to SOC work. I say like different type of SOCs, especially on, I have a video where I kind of broke this down, like a day in the life of a SOC analyst, but it's like a presentation of like different SOCs. You got SOCs where all they do is they just route tickets, so they don't do work. So that's why some people probably feel like it's entry-level help desk. You have an internal SOC where they can touch everything and do a lot of stuff. And then sometimes you have like MSS, XDR, where they're managing everything for you. So they're doing probably like tier 1 and 2 stuff, and then they're sending it back to you something from IR.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is, if you do want to work in a SOC environment, typically want to do internal, or if you can get to like an MSS one where you're actually doing work, where you get to look at logs and all these different tools that you could probably go niche down into, that's probably like the goal. If you're getting the one to where you just sending tickets and stuff over and you're not really learning anything, that's a SOC where you can kind of like, I don't really know nothing. And then I can start telling when it comes to the interviews that I do with some of the clients that come in, if they hadn't touched nothing. You just, oh, okay, this goes here. Let me do this, this, and this, and ask them a question. Like that's not really triaging. And for people that don't know, triaging is just a fancy term for investigation when it comes to security analysis work.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of why some people say that sysadmin is just like the next level of help desk. I think that might be the same thing, because there are sysadmins that anytime things come in, like they're just sending tickets out to like another group, another IT group inside of the company. But like all the sysadmin roles that I've seen, and then even the sysadmin role that I worked overseas, like it's not like that. Like we're not routing anything to anybody. Like anything that happens, we're the ones that's fixing it. We're the ones that's taking care of it. So that definitely is interesting. So for people who want to get into like a SOC, what type of skills should they have? And do you think SOC analyst roles are the best ways for people to get into cybersecurity?
Sure. So for someone to get into the SOC, I typically say they should understand emails, so phishing, how identify somebody's phishing, looking at our headers, understanding operating systems, Windows, Linux, Mac OS, understanding, of course, networking, knowing about the cloud, knowing a little bit about forensics, knowing about, you can say auto or ticketing type of things. Really, like I said, you got to know a lot about different things in order kind of just to be able to make it afloat in there. And then some people, they have a higher aptitude than others when it comes to learning this stuff. And that's why a lot of times we'll say, people that when a SOC, I'll say, if you worked in the help desk, it may be easier on you because you kind of know where some of the things may lie. Like you might have been in the help desk where you're installing software or something, and so you know how to find something in the registry key or something like that. And so you kind of got those transferable skills over to work in the SOC. Whereas if you don't, you just have to take like a lot of different studying to get into there. And then I believe your second question was, what do I believe is the best path, I guess, for somebody to get entry-level experience, right? Mm-hmm. So you can get in the SOC. I've had people get entry-level roles in the SOC. Typically, it's like, if you see a job that's like 0 to 2 years, that might be entry level, but they're very competitive. I think the easier way for a lot of people to get in is governance, risk, and compliance. I think that's the easier way, because it doesn't take, you can be technical and knowing about what you have to know when it comes to certain like risk assessments and compliance, but there's not like a lot of things you have to do like tool-wise to be super technical when it comes to GRC.
Yeah.
So I would say GRC is the easiest route to go in first, because if you know how to write reports, you know how to communicate, and then you know how to line it up and like with auditing. And I mean, shoot, girls do it all the time when they, lurking. Hey, you said you was with the fellas here, but this ain't lining up. Like, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say GRC.
Okay. So you think GRC is the easiest way to get in. So what type of like GRC roles should people be looking into if they want to get an entry-level GRC role, and what skills should they focus on? And how can they like develop these skills, or at least like put it on their resume to where companies will say, hey, yeah, let's bring this person in for an interview, even though they don't have experience?
Yeah, so I've seen like you got like IT auditing, compliance. Sometimes you get like vulnerability management, risk analyst. Some of those terms, and there's some other terms, because sometimes I tell people we don't really want to focus too much on the titles, because a job could be called something one way, like in the government, and then you go to finance or you go to another industry, they're called different things. Like when I worked at Optiv, I was a SOC analyst, but my title was threat analyst. Mm-hmm. But all it was a SOC analyst. But if you go start typing in threat analyst, it might come up for different things.
Right.
So vulnerability management, you can do anything. Sometimes you got stuff like data analytics. Really, it's a lot of different roles that come into that. I think what I always tell people to do, and this is a shameless plug, but I recommend people to go check out Simply Cyber. Gerald Auger has this course on TCM Security's website, and it's pretty much like the entry-level guide to like just learning about what governance, risk, and compliance is. And I've had a lot of people that I've helped on their resume put it down as a project, and they've at least gotten interviews just from having that project on there as long, because he kind of walks them through this, how to identify different things in audits. And then now you can take that skill set and then you go from there. I tell people, okay, cool, use ChatGPT, build you out some stuff to check for an audit, build you out like a home lab, and maybe try to see if somebody can run some vulnerabilities against it, and just showcase you got a grasp of the role. I think that's the part that everybody's missing sometimes is the project part. I always have people, hey, how do I find projects to do? Which can be hard if you ain't never did it before.
Right.
You just see everybody doing different stuff and you don't know how to line it up with like cool, like, you know, we always had the biggest debates when it comes to like public or private like sector roles. Oh, I got the SEC plus, I should get a job.
Right.
Which I believe you should get a job, but those hiring managers have been burned a lot of times by people that was cert chasing. So they don't really care that much about it in certain industries.
Right.
Now, certain industries, that's a requirement. I was reached out to, we was talking earlier, but the recruiter that reached out to me before they told me about the other opportunity I was telling you about, they sent me something for about like a SOC consultant, but they was like, the requirement to have was the GCFA, which is I think one of those SANS certs. I didn't have it. And it was a hard requirement.
Yep.
So there are instances where you do need it because that is what is required of the role. But for the most part, I would tell people don't focus too much on that cert and not worry about the skills that you're supposed to learn while getting the cert.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I see all the time, right? Like people are like, oh, I got this cert in 1 week or 2 weeks. But if somebody asks you about that same information that you should have known from getting that certification 2 months later, and you can't answer like the basic questions, you pretty much did yourself a disservice. Yes, you got the checkbox, and yes, it says like, okay, yeah, I got the Security Plus. But if you don't know anything about anything 2 or 3 months later, like, I mean, you pretty much really kind of, you hit that checkbox, but in my opinion, like you kind of wasted your time, right? Because you cheated the process. They should have been spending their time actually studying, learning, doing labs, going through quiz questions, practicing, maybe even like reaching out to other people, right? It's not about how fast you can get a certification. It's about getting that knowledge and then being able to apply it on the job. Like, even if you don't have experience, you should be able to apply some knowledge. Like, oh yeah, you know, I read about this, and while I was studying for Security Plus, I became curious and I started looking into this and doing this type of lab, right? But if you can't say anything, like they bring you in for an interview and you have nothing to say and you can't answer the simple questions, I mean, you pretty much, you're going to get tossed out and you're going to have a hard time landing a job.
I totally agree all the time. Like, I tell people when we didn't, like, apart, I kind of gave y'all the fast version of getting in. But if I go back to circa the summer of 2013, summer 2013, because I got my undergrad in November 2013, I met a, what is it called? A mentor at the time. There we go. A mentor at the time, and he used to be in the Air Force, but he currently had a job on the Air Force base. He was like, yo, you should get Security Plus. Because think about it, I had been going through school this whole time and didn't really know nothing about certifications. And that's probably a whole topic people could talk about when it comes to college. And so I studied. I got the big, thick book at the time. There wasn't no Jason Dion for me. I don't think Professor Messer may have been out. I don't know. But I took that book and I said, I'm going to read, I think I said I was going to read like 100 pages a day. And at the time, I was working at Super Target. So when I would get off work or I took that book with me on break, I would just read it. And so I finished it in a week, and then I started doing the questions, and I didn't really want to take the test. I was getting like close to 100s on everything. And so within like a month or two, I think I got it in June or July, because I had to reschedule one time and they almost didn't want to give me my money back. Because at that time, I think that test was like $300. And I was only making $775 at Target. So that $300 was a lot for me. So I needed to make sure I took that test and passed it. But I passed it, but I still didn't know anything. Like, I still was just applying to all those jobs. And then, finally, Apex gave me a call while I'm working at Target a couple of months later. And like, yo, hey, you want to do this project? We finna be on this, the client is gonna be like with TSA. You want to go on the help desk? And that was a $10 raise. So I jumped to it.
Right. And like, that's kind of my point, right? So Security Plus, I think when I say like, hey, you can get into GovTech in 90 days, the easiest way in is help desk IT support engineer, right? Like, I've never, ever, ever said that people will go from security plus straight to SOC analyst or cybersecurity engineer, right? So I think people definitely get that twisted. And certifications, they definitely hold a good spot, but you can't have unrealistic expectations, right? Like a certification is not gonna make you some like cybersecurity guru or something, right? Like that's not what's gonna happen.
When I was trying to get the help desk job, applying to everything,
yeah.
Sometimes they don't call you till like months later. Hey, remember you applied to what? Right. And I couldn't remember nothing when they tell me about it, because before I was a help desk analyst, I was almost gonna do like one of those AT&T jobs where you either like setting up like Wi-Fi and stuff like that. I was almost gonna do that because I was like, that was paying good enough money too. I was like, something gonna have to give.
Right. Yeah, I think like when you're applying for jobs, you gotta stay organized. Whether you're using a tool like Till or whether you're using a spreadsheet, you gotta keep track of these jobs. And an easy way to do it too, if you don't have a spreadsheet or something like that, is if you have logins to the different sites. So like GovTech, like you can't. I mean, there are some GovTech jobs on LinkedIn, but most of them are directly on the government contractor sites or directly on the federal government site or on clearance jobs. So you have a login, so you can see all the jobs you've applied to before. So you've been telling me about your career and how you have a family now. So can you tell me a little bit about how like tech has changed your life over like the past decade?
Yeah, crazy. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. Like I said, I mean, compared to bigger cities, it's pretty small, but it's like the third largest city in Louisiana. When I was going through college, I remember at times I was like, I just want to get out and make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, because I come from that thinking like, that's a lot of money. Then now when you start getting into tech, and what helped me realize what a lot of money was when I was doing help desk, everybody had the different contractors. So a lot of us were Apex, and then some people had their own contractor. One guy was doing help desk with us. He was getting like $40 an hour to do help desk. And then that's when I started realizing, like, hold on. Wait a minute, he getting 80, like Cadence to do this, and we doing all this work, and I'm only getting 35? So I started expanding my mind, and I think, honestly, when I moved out here in 2016, that's kind of when the light switch kind of flipped on. I actually moved out here and stayed with my aunt. And when I was in our neighborhood, I didn't like from Shreveport, you're going to probably go through the hood all the time. Like it's only like, if you're it's a street called West 70th, and then you go over Line Avenue, then that turned into the good area. But when I moved out here, I ain't seen no bad area. I started seeing like notes and different things. So I started changing my mindset. I started seeing the different jobs. Like once I got the job that paid the $68,000, that's when I started saying, okay, I know I can get more. Then I started seeing all the different jobs and stuff like that. And what triggered everything again was in 2020, everybody, started actually coming to Twitter and talking about either what they was making or different things or spending my network. So you had these different people saying like, yo, I work for so-and-so. They hiring for 150. So when I went to Goldman Sachs, I think that was when, okay, the money out here.
Right.
I've been, going down too low. And so that's where the thing happens too. And so one of the things I typically tell people, or I told them in episodes or videos, is like, when you start getting those different salaries, it'll help you get the next one. So if you were too scared to ask for, pretty much like Jermaine say, the job father say, like the salary amount you ask for should make you uncomfortable. So at certain times when I started saying, I want to get, at least 175 and up, at first you used to be like, I don't know if I would say that. But then you realize the money out there, if they can't do it, they can't do it. But the money is out there. But if you had never made a 155 or 160, you'd be scared to ask for it. So every job, unless you just got to take a lateral move, try to get more money so that can open your eyes. And like I said, the networking, people I met, I just was with Shanae and her husband this past Friday. I just got a chance to meet like so many different people, so many different things, people to where they tell me different things. We all got kids. Like I actually got 2 daughters now. So
okay, congrats.
So girl dad, and yeah, it's just been great. I think once, I don't know for what reason, I'm gonna be honest, I think once I had the kids, it's kind of what like gave me the extra boost.
So basically it's allowed you to kind of like just expand your mind and then, make money that you never probably thought you would make, especially from you being from Louisiana. I already know how it is out there. So my dad, he's from Louisiana, from central Louisiana, close to.
Oh yeah, that's even, for lack of a better word, that's worse, because at least we close to I-20. And we got all the casinos in there.
No, like Bunkie and stuff?
Yep.
Yeah, they're from like further than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're from that casino that's out there. That one street. There's one street out there. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, no, I'm glad you're able to, really expand your mind, because I know how it is. Like a lot of people, they don't realize how much money you can make in tech until you start either seeing other people talking about their salary, or once you like go to a different area and start applying to jobs and they're like, oh yeah, this role pays between 80K and 120 or 80 and 150.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, people can make this much in tech?
Yeah.
So for me, that's really why I started all of this and why I started tweeting on Twitter, is because I knew that Black people did not know that we
Right.
can make this type of money, right? Like that, it's not something that's really talked about,
It ain't.
and then in our community, it's always been a taboo to talk about money. And I've never agreed with that, right? So, that's really why I started all this. So I'm glad you were able to like expand your mind, and then also share, share your strategies and your career strategies so other people can get in as well. So before we wrap up this episode, I always ask this question: what's one piece of advice that you could give to people to get into your position today?
One piece of advice I would honestly say, because I typically give this advice to people so they can actually be better than me earlier on in their career than me, is, but network. Be visible at work. Volunteer for stuff if it's cool, or if they don't want to do it. Simple one, documentation. People hate doing documentation. Go in and ask, hey, can I help y'all update this thing or do that? You're going to learn so much about the company, different things they're working on, but never stop learning. Maybe every couple of months, like learn a new skill, stay interviewing, really everything. Document your own journey too. I know everybody don't want to be an influencer. You don't have to be an influencer, but you should like write some blog pieces or something like that. Like, how do you, and here's the thing, they'll have jobs that say, oh, we need a good communicator, or we need somebody that can, write good reports or something like that. But there have been times in the past where I was interviewing for roles and they want to know if it was like a SOC role, IR role, what are your skills like? So I had a video where I just did like a Splunk boss of the SOC investigation. I said, hey, share this with the hiring team. I got interviews pretty much for all those roles. Because now I'm showing and I'm not telling. So I tell everybody to show your work. That's what I'll do. And, I also tell them, stay ahead of the game. And if you don't read the last page of the rule book, your head will be shaved.
Okay, cool. All right, so thank you so much, Henri, for coming out. I appreciate you. Where can people find you at? Like, where can they follow you? Your LinkedIn, your YouTube channel, all of that?
Yeah, so most of my social media is all the same. Textual Chatter, that's TECHTUAL, I think that's right, Chatter. Mm-hmm. If not, it should be in the description below. And then my podcast is the Textual Talk. So it's the same thing, but it's just talk spaced out. You can go to the textualtalk.com. And in any of my bios, you'll see a link that can just show you like all the different things that I advertise, or if you want to come do like some consults or anything, or you just want to donate or just join the Patreon, you can do that as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming out. So that wraps up another episode of Day in My Tech Life. My name is Simone B, also known as Bees. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. We'll see you on the next one.